DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world with me, Deepika, coming up in the next 1 hour. 10 killed, over 25 injured in Canada mass shooting. Prime Minister Mark Carney suspends Munich trip, says devastated by horrific shootings in Tumbler Ridge. US President to meet Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Washington today, talks to address Tehran's ballistic missiles. White House says Trump fully supports Commerce Secretary Lutnick even as he acknowledges lunch on Epstein's private island, but denies any closer relationship with the convicted sex offender. Exercise Vayu Shakti all set to highlight IAF's role in Operation Sindoor with 100 aircraft including 77 fighter jets set to dazzle the deserts of Rajasthan. And amidst political turmoil, Bangladesh is all set to head to the polls on the 12th of February. More than 150,000 officers deployed to guard risky polling centres. Good afternoon to all the viewers joining us at this afternoon broadcast. To begin with the latest from Canada. In a tragic shooting incident in Canada, at least 10 people were killed on Tuesday in a remote part of Western region. 6 people were found dead inside a high school in Tumbler Ridge. 2 more people were found dead at a residence believed to be connected to the incident, and another person died on the way to the hospital. A suspected shooter was also found dead from what appears to be a self-inflicted injury. According to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, 27 people have been injured, including 2 recording serious injuries. Tumbler Ridge is a remote municipality with a population of around 2,400 people located in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains in northern British Columbia.
We have 2 scenes. We have the school, and then we have found 2 other persons deceased at a residence in Tumbler Ridge that we're trying to determine the connection to this event. We believe they're connected, but we're not in a position to provide that definitively right now at this time, and what that connection may or may not be. We have multiple layers of support coming for our students, for our teachers, for our community of Tumbler Ridge, for our front line and front first responders that were part of this unfolding event and are going to be working through that in the days and years to come. I've had an opportunity to speak with the mayor. I've had an opportunity to speak with politicians. Your businesses are stepping up to provide support.
Canadian Prime Minister expressed grief over the deadly school shooting and suspended his planned visit to the Munich Security Conference. Mark Carney expressed his devastation over the shooting. He offered prayers and condolences to the victim families and friends. Following the tragedy, Prime Minister's office confirmed that his scheduled trip to Munich Security Conference has been suspended. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney spoke to Donald Trump in a bid to resolve a row sparked by the US President's threats to block a new bridge between the 2 countries. The disagreement arose after Trump suggested the United States should own at least half of the Gordie Howe International Bridge currently being built between Ontario and Michigan. Canada financed the project, and that ownership is jointly held by the Canadian government and the state of Michigan. Named after hockey legend, the bridge was intended as a symbol of bilateral unity. The White House press secretary said that President Trump made it clear during his call with Prime Minister Mark Carney that it is unacceptable for Canada to control traffic over the new Detroit-Windsor Bridge.
to reiterate, the fact that Canada will control what crosses the Gordie Howe Bridge and owns the land on both sides is unacceptable to the president. It's also unacceptable that more of this bridge isn't being built with more American-made materials, even more so than what President Barack Obama committed to with the Canadians at the time, at the start of the project. He also believes that the U.S. should own at least half of the bridge, have shared authority over what passes across it, and participate in the economic benefits generated by its use. This is just another example of President Trump putting America's interests first, and so he made that very clear in his call with Prime Minister Carney earlier today.
Meanwhile, in U.S. House of Representatives, a bid by the Republican leaders to block legislative challenges to President Donald Trump's tariff was rejected. Now, this move could allow the Democrats to try to undo U.S. tariffs on Canada. Lawmakers voted 217 to 214 to derail the plan to bar tariff challenges through the 31st of July, with 3 Republicans joining 214 Democrats in opposition. The prohibition was included in a measure intended to open the debate on 3 unrelated bills. Democrats hope to force a House vote as early as Wednesday to terminate Trump's use of a national emergency to put punitive trade measures on Canadian goods. They also have resolutions to overturn Trump's tariffs on Mexico and other countries. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met with Special Envoy to US Steve Witkoff and Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner in Washington on Tuesday. He is also expected to meet Donald Trump, and this will be the 7th meeting between Donald Trump and Netanyahu since the US president returned to the office last year. They also met in Jerusalem in October last year when Trump announced a ceasefire in Gaza. Wednesday's meeting comes days after Iran and the United States held talks in Oman, after which Trump said another round of negotiations would follow. The discussion is also expected to focus on energy issues and deregulation.
Tomorrow here at the White House, the president will host Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for a bilateral meeting. The remainder of the week will be focused on energy and deregulation.
Qatar's Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani held a telephonic conversation with US President Donald Trump on Wednesday. The Emiri Divan said that the two leaders discussed efforts for regional de-escalation and stability. The call comes ahead of a meeting between Trump and Netanyahu, where the Israeli Prime Minister is expected to press him to widen US talks with Iran to include curbs on Tehran's missile arsenal. And Jessica Taneja joins us with more. Good afternoon, Jessica. Now, in Netanyahu's 7th meeting with President Trump, Iran is high on agenda. Tell us the significance of this meeting between the two and considering the expectations of Trump from Iran.
Well, in the recent past, we've seen the tensions around in West Asia with the USS Abraham Lincoln, which was deployed last month. And there has been a buildup of various other warships. In total, we're given to understand more than 7 warships, and another aircraft carrier strike group is on its way to join the USS Abraham Lincoln. So that is a security buildup in West Asia. But if you talk about the deal and the possible talks on Iran giving up its uranium enrichment as well as its nuclear weapons program, along with its ballistic missile program, which has been the demand of the Israelis for a very long time. Now, this meeting, the 7th one of United States President with the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, is significant in more ways than one, because it is the most number of times the American president has met any other head of state in the last 1.5 years since he became or was elected the president of the United States. So perhaps, given the current geopolitical circumstances that are at play, the concerns for the Israeli side, as you read through and understand from the political spheres within Israel, is that Donald Trump would want a deal more than he would want an outcome. And the outcomes, according to the Israeli government, the far-right government, which has been pressing Benjamin Netanyahu to come with a deal, is to ensure that Iran gives up its uranium enrichment program, and as well as its ballistic missile program, and also stop funding its proxy groups, both Hamas and Hezbollah, which have in the previous past, you've seen they have been dismantled quite a bit, with the Israelis striking both Hezbollah and Hamas in various other locations. So with this meeting, the Israeli Prime Minister is also signaling that he has come with an agenda, and that agenda is pretty much clear. That is to restrict Iran. Otherwise, if you look at what the Israelis are mulling, at this point, they haven't ruled out any kind of military action if Iran refuses to give up its nuclear weapons program or its uranium enrichment program. So there's a lot that is in the picture right now, apart from the ones that were mentioned by White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. But if you see the meeting and how it proceeds in the coming days, it'll be important to see what the outcomes are with the build-up in Iran, and as you mentioned about the meeting that the Iranian officials had for the first time since the US had struck 13 locations of nuclear facilities within Iran, also called as Operation Midnight Hammer, which was last year in June. And this is the first time they met last week, and in Oman, the talks remained inconclusive. So there's a lot of sort of discrepancy and also not much clarity as to what the talks between United States and Iran would be, especially when it comes to its nuclear program. And there are various other talks suggesting otherwise, but we'll wait for these outcomes in the meetings. But for the Israeli Prime Minister, it's extremely important, apart from just talking about the ceasefire plan, which is in the second phase, and with that also not going according to plan and timelines, is a bit of a concern, not just for Gaza, but also for others who had joined with the Board of Peace. That meeting also happens next year, so a lot happening in terms of what is to be done in the West Asian region, and we're keeping an eye on that.
Thank you, Jessica, for joining us and getting us the latest on this. Moving on, Democrats in the US Congress pressed President Donald Trump's top immigration officials over the Republican president's crackdown, the first such hearing since 2 US citizens were killed in Minnesota amid mounting opposition to Trump's mass deportation push. Democrats sharply criticized immigration enforcement leaders after federal officers killed Trini Good and Alex Petty in Minneapolis, challenging officials over masked agents, lack of body cameras, and aggressive tactics. Democrats say ICE must be reformed and have demanded they remove the mask, wear body cameras, and prioritize enforcement to focus on criminal offenders. The top Democrats on the committee, Benny Thompson, also criticized the Trump administration's aggressive enforcement in U.S. cities and reiterated a call for Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem to resign. Meanwhile, the 3 Trump officials in opening remarks defended the president's immigration agenda, highlighting threats to ICE officers, increased border security under Trump, and more intense vetting of legal immigrants. French President Emmanuel Macron will pay an official visit to India on the 17th and till the 19th of February. Ministry of External Affairs said that Macron will be visiting India at the invitation of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. During the visit, both the leaders will hold discussions on strengthening bilateral cooperation across a wide spectrum of areas as enshrined in Horizon 2047 roadmap. In addition to this, the leaders will discuss regional and global issues of mutual interest, including cooperation in the Indo-Pacific. The 2 leaders will also be in Mumbai to jointly inaugurate the India-France Year of Innovation, which will be celebrated throughout 2026 in both the countries. On the 19th of February, President Macron will participate in AI Impact Summit in New Delhi. Time for a short break, but still to come on the other side. United States to relax restrictions on Venezuela's oil sector, expanding efforts to let American companies resume operations. Oscar nominees gathered for Academy's annual luncheon. Up next, more details on this.
On defense dynamics, India fires a message the world can't ignore. Agni 3, the strategic signaling to China and Pakistan. Why AMCA, India's 6th generation fighter, must be built by private players. Winning the low sky inside the Indian Army's radar reset. As middle powers rise, the arms market becomes a battlefield. And in my take, Pakistan's collapse and shock ahead. For all this and much more, tune in this Wednesday at 8 p.m. IST only on DD India.
Welcome back after that short break. You're watching DD India News Hour. Now, the United States on Tuesday moved to further relax restrictions on Venezuela's oil sector, expanding efforts to let the American companies resume operations after state controls were lifted. The U.S. Treasury Department issued a license permitting certain transactions with Venezuela's government and state-run oil company PDVSA to supply goods, technology and software for oil and gas exploration and production. Additional licenses authorize specific dealings required for port and airport operations and allow limited activities involving Venezuelan origin crude. Washington has supported the government of interim President Elsie Rodriguez in exchange for access to vast the oil reserves. United States has reiterated that the Caribbean will not be a safe space for illicit or sanctioned activities, saying its joint military forces remain ready to act decisively against violations in the region. U.S. military forces deployed under the Southcom Command are supporting Operation Southern Spear, aimed at countering illegal activities and enforcing sanctions in the Caribbean. The Department of War said its forces have previously intercepted and apprehended vessels violating sanctions and remain prepared to do so again. The operation is being carried out in coordination with the Department of Homeland Security, State Department and the Justice Department, aligning with the U.S. President's priority of Homeland Security. United States and Azerbaijan signed a strategic partnership agreement in Baku, launching a fresh chapter in economic and security cooperation as Washington seeks to expand its influence in the South Caucasus. Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev inked the agreement with U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance, who is on a trip to Baku after visiting its neighbor and longtime foe, Armenia. The charter was first presented at talks between Aliyev and President Donald Trump at a meeting in the White House in August, where the Azerbaijani leader reached a peace agreement with Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan to end decades of war. Vance's visit comes just 6 months after the Armenian and Azerbaijani leaders signed an agreement at the White House, seen as the first step towards peace after nearly 40 years of war. Moving on, a suspect in the abduction of U.S. television host Savannah Guthrie's elderly mother, Nancy, was taken into custody in Arizona on Tuesday, 9 days after the 84-year-old woman was reported missing. No further details were immediately available from either the U.S. officials or from the sheriff's office. Earlier, the FBI has released new images and video showing a masked suspect at the home of missing Arizona woman Nancy. FBI images show a masked person tampering with her front door camera on the morning of the 1st of February. The family has received ransom letters and Nancy's health concerns add urgency to the hunt. Savannah called it an hour of desperation, urging anyone with information to contact the authorities. Investigators continue searching the Tucson area as the nationwide manhunt continues. Anti-government protests clashed with the police in Albania's capital, Tirana, on Tuesday as thousands gathered to demand the resignation of the deputy prime minister over alleged corruption. The protests threatening Prime Minister Edi Rama's rule since 2013 have intensified following the December indictment of his deputy, Belinda Baluku, over alleged public tender interference, which she denies. The Special Prosecution Office has requested the Parliament to lift Baluku's immunity to enable her arrest, but the vote's timing remains uncertain. A student died during protests over unpaid financial aid at Senegal's top university in Dakar as weeks of unrest over delayed stipends escalated into clashes with security forces. The government said the circumstances surrounding the death of Abdoulaye Ba, a second-year dental surgery student, remain under investigation. Protests in Senegal reflect public frustration as the government faces a $13 billion deficit and a hidden debt crisis since taking office in April 2024. A political storm linked to Jeffrey Epstein is intensifying on both sides of the Atlantic. In Washington, U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick is facing mounting calls to resign after admitting he once visited Epstein's private island. Meanwhile, in Britain, Prime Minister Keir Starmer is battling pressure within his own party over an Epstein-linked appointment. Here's a report by DD India's Harshita Oberoi.
Mounting pressure is building on U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick as fresh revelations revive scrutiny of his past links to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. At the center of the storm, Lutnick's admission that he had lunch on Epstein's private Caribbean island in 2012, years after he had previously claimed to have severed all ties with the late financier. Emailed records now show plans for a meeting at Epstein Island. Lutnick insists there was nothing improper about the visit. He maintains he saw no wrongdoing and said only his family, another couple, and Epstein's staff were present at the time.
I met Jeffrey Epstein when I moved to a house next door to him in New York, right? And I met him then. Over the next 14 years, I met him 2 other times that I can recall. 2 times. And that is none for 6 years. So 6 years later, I met him. And then a year and a half after that, I met him and never again. Probably the total, and you've seen all of these documents, of these millions and millions of documents, there may be 10 emails connecting me with him, probably about 10 emails connecting me with him over a 14-year period. I did not have any relationship with him. I barely had anything to do with that person.
Despite growing calls for his resignation, President Donald Trump's administration has stood firmly by Lutnick.
No, Secretary Lutnick remains a very important member of President Trump's team, and the president fully supports the secretary.
Across the Atlantic, Epstein controversy is brewing up a political tempest for UK PM Keir Starmer. He's come under pressure over his decision to appoint veteran Labour figure Peter Mandelson as ambassador to Washington. A day after facing demands to step down, Prime Minister confirmed he will lead the Labour Party into the next election.
Well, what's happened over the last few days is that we've pulled together as a party and been absolutely crystal clear about the fight we need to have. And that's the fight on behalf of all the people in this country who don't get the respect, the dignity, and the chance that they deserve in life. That is the fight that we are in. That's who we're fighting for. I'm their Prime Minister, and this is their government.
Starmer now faces a key by-election on February 26th, followed by local elections in May, votes that could shape his and his party's future. Harshita Oberoi, DD India.
European Union lawmakers are pushing for an investigation into the Epstein case. They say the latest released files suggest potential risk of influence peddling, blackmail and money laundering. For more on the fallout in Europe, we are joined by DW correspondent Chiponda Chimpelu in Berlin. Good afternoon, Chiponda. What are EU lawmakers most concerned about right now?
Thanks for having me. Well, EU lawmakers say they don't want to rely on investigations in the United States, and so they are calling for an investigation here. Now, that is what Katharina Barley, the vice president of the EU Parliament, told a leading German business newspaper this week. Now, the latest release of Epstein files includes former European government officials, and their links to the late disgraced sex offender and financier Jeffrey Epstein are increasingly coming under scrutiny. Now, while such investigations are normally the responsibility of member states, European lawmakers want to see coordination and cooperation in this case. They want Europol, the EU agency for law enforcement cooperation, to be involved. Now, the European politicians believe collaboration and coordination across EU states would help the investigations to unveil any potential networks that helped or supported Jeffrey Epstein's criminal activities.
You are in Germany. What has been the response there?
A German government spokesperson said that Berlin is closely monitoring the evaluation of the Epstein files. And that is because there is a political side to it, something that is also, of course, evident in other European countries. But if the Epstein files unveil any criminal aspects under German law, then that would be investigated by the relevant authorities and not the government, which does not have any criminal investigation authority responsibilities. Now, elsewhere in Germany, Deutsche Bank, the country's biggest lender, which was already caught up in the Epstein scandal, is once again in the spotlight. Now, Jeffrey Epstein had up to 40 accounts with Deutsche Bank, and he was a customer between 2013 and 2018. And at one point, the convicted sex offender kept a large part of his assets at Deutsche Bank. Now, that is what the latest release of the Epstein files show. Now, Deutsche Bank has described its business relationship with Epstein as a mistake that it has learned from, and it also said that it provided support to the relevant authorities after Epstein's arrest in 2019.
All right. Thank you so much, Iponda, for joining us and getting us the latest on this. Moving on. 2 Chinese nationals appear in the court on Wednesday after Australian police charged them with foreign interference on grounds of covertly collecting information about a Buddhist group on behalf of a Chinese government security agency. It is the second instance of Chinese nationals being charged under foreign interference laws that Australia introduced in 2018, and the pair became the 4th and 5th individuals charged for this. The Australian Federal Police said a 25-year-old man and a 31-year-old woman allegedly worked with another Chinese woman who was charged in August to gather information about Canberra branch of the group, Wongit-Sita. Each defendant faces a count of foreign interference carrying a maximum jail term of 15 years. Taiwan's defense minister on Wednesday stated the delay in passing a $40 billion special military budget risks a rupture in the joint line of defense against China, as President Lai Ching-te urged the opposition-controlled parliament to approve the spending measure. Last year, Lai proposed increasing defense spending to counter China's claim over the island. The opposition rejected his proposal and offered a cheaper plan funding only selected US weapons. And now let's take a look at other stories making news around the world in brief. Workers inside a metal foundry in England are crafting BAFTA's iconic mask-shaped awards by pouring molten phosphor bronze into customs sand molds. The trophies will be presented across more than 20 film categories, with Leonardo DiCaprio and Timothée Chalamet among this year's nominees on the 22nd of this month. Oscar nominees gathered for the Academy's annual luncheon, one of the key events ahead of next month's awards. The nominees posed for traditional class photograph celebrating achievements across all categories. The luncheon is seen as a rare moment where Hollywood's biggest contenders come together in one room. In the United States, iconic designer Ralph Lauren presented his fall 2026 collection in Manhattan as New York Fashion Week opened. The show reflected the diverse, personal and timeless ways people live, blending his signature American style with refined, individualistic and adventurous themes. Time for a short break, but still to come on the other side. Up next, we'll get you a detailed discussion on the upcoming Bangladesh elections.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the Economic Brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back after that short break. You're watching DD India News Hour. Well, voting will take place for the 13th Jatiya Sangsad election on Thursday in Bangladesh. According to the Election Commission, 2,034 candidates are contesting from 51 parties across 299 constituencies with over 127 million voters eligible. BNP has the highest number of candidates. The voting will be held using ballot papers amid assurances of zero tolerance for violence. Chief Election Commissioner AMM Nasiruddin, while addressing the nation, urged the voters to exercise their franchise without fear.
I wish to reaffirm the Election Commission's unwavering commitment to delivering a peaceful, credible and participatory election. Comprehensive security and coordination arrangements are in place with support of law enforcement agencies and the government of Bangladesh.
Ahead of Bangladesh elections, parties are expressing concerns over incidents of violence. Meeting with BNP Election Management Committee was held to discuss the issues of security, inclusion and the overall election situation. While Islamic leaders called on the voters to support Bangladesh Nationalist Party, the coalition party leader has accused Jamaat-e-Islami of spreading extremist messages after 2024 July uprising. At this sensitive time, a Bangladeshi Hindu businessman was also killed on Monday night, raising fears of targeted violence ahead of the polls. There have been repeated concerns by the right groups and observers about the safety of vulnerable communities. To ensure security during polling, nearly 900,000 members of the army, police and other forces have been deployed. Election Commissioner Abul Faisal Mohammad said that Bangladesh has a comprehensive security structure in place and the international people can feel free to move anywhere.
We have a comprehensive security structure in place. More than 900,000 men and women from the law enforcement agencies are deployed to cover the election. For our international friends, feel free to move anywhere. Bangladesh is a very safe place.
And now to get you more on this, I'm joined by DD India correspondent from Dhaka, Naval Sangh Parmar. Good afternoon. Tell us, how is Bangladesh preparing for the upcoming poll?
Less than 24 hours left for the voting in the Bangladesh upcoming national election as well as the referendum. There is a kind of a mixed atmosphere. There is a fear among the people, one section of people, and at the same time, there is a expectation from this election. Bangladesh is witnessing a lawlessness in last 1.5 years under the Yunus administration, and they are fed up with the economic issues as well as the corruption and the law and order problems in Bangladesh. So they are thinking that anyway, if it is not an inclusive election, but some kind of election is happening, and then there will be an elected government for the Bangladesh, and it will solve the law and order issues. And that is the prime concern for the most of the people in Bangladesh. At the same time, the voters who earlier used to vote for the Awami League and Awami League voters, as there is Awami League was contesting the election, they were silent on regarding the voting. But in last 2-4 days, the development happens that in many districts, Awami League supporters and the minority voters are coming out of their indecisive mode, and they openly supported BNP as the only, in absence of Awami League, BNP is the option for them. There is a apprehension regarding the Jamaat-e-Islami regarding its fundamental ideology. So this kind of atmosphere is here, and as the continuous violence incidents have been reported in last 1.5 months, so there is a fear also, and in Bangladesh is having a history of targeted violence during election, and that affects particularly the vulnerable section of society, mainly the women's minorities, including Hindus, Buddhists, Christian, and the vulnerable section of other section of this society. So let's see what happen in coming days. 2-3 days are very crucial. Tomorrow there is a voting, and then immediately after voting completed, there will be a counting. Unlike India, there is no cooling days in Bangladesh after election. Once the voting is completed, then counting will start. And during counting, there may be issues, and because it is a neck-to-neck fight between the BNP and Jamaat, though they were once upon a time they were aligned partner, but now they are fighting election as a rival. So, previously also during campaigning phase also there are many incidents of violence among the activists of Jamaat-e-Islami and BNP. So this kind of violence may occur in coming days.
And amidst all this, when we are saying that these are the free and fair elections as the Bangladeshi people are seeing it as, what are the key expectations of the people there?
People in Bangladesh, basically their expectation is to have a stable government as well as the safety and security. Safety and security is the priority one expectation of Bangladeshi people, because they face a lot in last 1.5 years. So they want, first of all, the safety and security, better law and order situation, and at the same time they want the stability. So investment comes, and the reforms as well as the economically Bangladesh face a lot. There was a unemployment, inflation, and corruption in previous regime, but in the last 1.5 years, things were turned bad to worse. So this is the scenario here in Bangladesh. People expect stable government with a better law and order situation, and at the same time economic development, mainly the employment and the control of inflation. Yes.
Right. Thank you so much, Naval Singh, for joining us and getting us the latest. Now let's go across to Ms. Veena Sikri, the former Indian High Commissioner to Bangladesh, to get your rounded perspective on this. Good afternoon. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining us at this afternoon broadcast. Now, corruption, inflation, employment-related issues and violence, they have dominated Bangladesh for far too long now. And amidst this turmoil, Bangladesh will vote tomorrow. Tell us how this election will shape the future of Bangladesh as Gen Z is leading from the front this time.
Well, I think that the election results are too close to call. Yes, there is one version which says that all the Awami Leaguers and the women candidates will vote for BNP. But there are other equal polls which are coming out in the Pratham Alo and others which say that it is the Jamaat-e-Islami coalition of 11 parties and the BNP coalition are neck to neck. Each of them has about 44% of the vote. But I think one of the big factors is that we saw the Chief Election Commissioner talking about participatory elections. But they have left out the biggest political party of Bangladesh, which is the Awami League. And it is Jamaat-e-Islami, which is the cadre-based party, and the Awami League. These are the only two cadre-based parties in Bangladesh. It is being talked about quite openly that today it is the Jamaat-e-Islami which is the power behind the throne. They are the ones who are controlling Muhammad Yunus, and they are the ones who have deliberately chosen to prevent the Awami League from participating because they want to give themselves a chance. They have never got more than 12% of the vote. Normally, they have always got 10% and less, 5-6% of the vote in Bangladesh elections. This time, because they are the power behind the throne, they have done a lot of vote engineering. This is what the social media of Bangladesh is carrying very prominently. And without the Awami League's presence, they hope to reap a benefit. But even if, in my view, even if there is a close call between these two, there are two factors we have to take into account. First of all, this so-called referendum. The interim regime itself is an illegal, unconstitutional body. The referendum itself is also an unconstitutional act because there is no provision for a referendum in the present constitution. And Muhammad Yunus has given a lot of focus on getting a yes vote in the referendum because the speculation is that he wants to become the president. Under the referendum, the president is going to be given more powers and he wants to be the president. And then he wants to have a national unity government with both the BNP and the Jamaat-e-Islami in it. And with that, he wants to rule Bangladesh for the next indefinite future. Now, this is a scenario which I do not know the people of Bangladesh whether they will accept it or not. Your correspondent was absolutely correct in indicating that the situation in Bangladesh is very poor. Unemployment, inflation, the women's situation is absolutely horrendous. And the Jamaat-e-Islami leader made some very derogatory comments about women. The condition of the minorities, the Hindus, the Buddhists, the Christians, the Sufis and Ahmadiyas, they are in a terrible condition. They have been brought to their knees. And nobody in the West, the Western powers and Pakistan who did this entire regime change operation to oust Sheikh Hasina, they are standing by mutely when all these things are going on in Bangladesh. Right. And they are pretending to call this as a fair and participatory election. This is a real travesty of facts. And I think that we have to be conscious of the fact that after the election, the unrest and instability could well continue.
Right.
And this will be a big problem for Bangladesh.
And in this case, can the former Awami League voters influence the outcome of the election?
Well, the Awami League itself has launched a very active no vote campaign. Vote is the electoral symbol of Awami League, and they have said that because the vote is not there on the ballot, so no Awami Leaguer should go and vote. So they have called for a boycott of the elections. Now, whether the boycott will be observed 100% is not known, because the Awami Leaguers and the minorities, they are all under tremendous pressure from the Jamaat-e-Islami to go and vote in their favor. And they're saying, if you don't vote for us, then we will, catch your family afterward. They're threatening violence against the families and so on. So it is expected that Awami League and the women and the minority communities, some of them may go and vote out of sheer fear. But I don't think there will be a very big participation. Let us see what happens in that, because, of course, one more reason why the regime wants a bigger participation and they're forcing Awami Leaguers and minorities to vote is because they want to show that the participation is higher than the 2024 elections, And they want to show that, this is a very good election. So let us see what happens. The main thing will be if the outcome is going to be accepted by the people or not. They have been very patient all this while for 18 months. They're not excited at all about these elections. It's not like a normal election. It's an election under tremendous pressure, under tremendous pressure of the world, Western community and of many other countries. But I am not sure whether the election outcome will bring an end to the instability, to the lack of economic growth, to the violence, to the lack of law and order. These are big questions.
Right. So also tell us that how the return of Tariq Rahman made PNP one of the favorites to win the so-called free and fair elections in decades.
Well, it's a moot point. I think the return of Tariq Rahman he's come back after 17 years. But during these 17 years when he was in London, he was very close to the ISI. He was very close to Pakistan. So now that he's come back, there are certain fissures in the BNP that have come out in the open. There is a group of the BNP that is very close to Jamaat-e-Islami, and that group will not mind at all joining the Jamaat-e-Islami-led government or being part of a national consensus government. This group is at least 30 to 40% of the BNP. In addition, there are people in the BNP who, still remember former Prime Minister Khalda Zia, who's the mother of Tariq Rahman. So there is a lot of confusion there, but the BNP has tried to paper over all these facts and present a united view in the hope that they will get a very large number of votes and that they will be able to form a government on their own. On the one hand, Tariq Rahman is saying that he will form a government on his own and he will not join a national consensus government. But we know that he's under tremendous pressure because till recently he was arguing for a no vote in the referendum. But then he came under pressure from the Pakistanis, from Mohammed Yunus, from Jamaat-e-Islami, and he changed. Only a few days ago, about a week ago, he changed and is now arguing for a yes vote in the referendum. So similarly, even if his party gets a number of seats, he may just give in to pressure and agree to join a unity government, a so-called national consensus government. But whether this government will be acceptable, whether it is going to be able to install itself, this is to be seen.
And at the same time, women still remain unheard with the latest example of the latest uproar against Jamaat-e-Islami. Can this really go against the party in tomorrow's voting procedure?
Yes, not only the Jamaat-e-Islami's derogatory statement, but I must tell you that the women voters, the women candidates are not there. There are, you will not believe this, but there are less than 4% women candidates in the fray. Only 3.93% women candidates. Jamaat-e-Islami has not a single woman candidate. They have got one Hindu candidate as a token, but not a single woman candidate. The BNP also has maybe 10 out of 250 candidates are women. And most of the women candidates are the ones with dynastic connections, you know. They are part of some dynasty or the other, some political family or the other, and so they're being given. So there is great dissatisfaction among the women. Now the question is whether the women are going to stay away from the vote or whether they're going to go and vote for the BNP. This is a question that is still not known because the women have been so unsafe. They have been so, traumatized by what has been happening. They're not even allowed to wear the bindi. You know, the teep, they call it the teep in Bangla, but it's the bindi. It's very popular in Bangladesh among all women. But the moral police, the Islamic moral code, the Islamic dress code, moral police, they've been, shouting at women who are wearing the teep. So there is a great deal of dissatisfaction on the ground in Bangladesh, whether this election is going to bring an end to that process or whether that process will remain. If the dissatisfaction remains, the violence will also remain. And this is what we have to wait and watch.
That's true. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining us and getting us the much needed analysis on Bangladesh elections. Moving on. Now, Lok Sabha, or the lower house of the Indian Parliament, continued discussions on the Union Budget 2026-27, which began on Tuesday with Congress MP Shashi Tharoor and Leader of Opposition Rahul Gandhi speaking in the House. Speaking during the ongoing budget session, BJP leader Anurag Singh Thakur slammed the opposition. Union Labour Minister Mansukh Mandaviya introduced the Industrial Relations Code Amendment Bill 2026 in Lok Sabha during the ongoing debate. During the question hour, Union Minister of Railways Ashwini Vaishnaw replied to the questions on Vande Bharat trains in Maharashtra and Madhya Pradesh. Meanwhile, Rajya Sabha, or the upper house of the Indian Parliament, also resumed its proceedings for the day. Moving on. Now, after Operation Sindoor, the Indian Air Force is all set to deliver a clear message across the Western Front. Exercise Vayu Shakti 2026, the premier firepower demonstration, is scheduled to take place on the 27th of February. Over 100 aircraft, including 77 fighters and 43 helicopters armed with lethal weapons, are set to dazzle the deserts of Rajasthan in Pokhran Field Firing Range. Vice Chief of the Air Staff, Indian Air Force Air Marshal Nagesh Kapoor, said that terror will not be tolerated and the message is quite clear.
Terrorism will not be tolerated, and every act of terror conducted on our soil will be responded to, and there will be a price to pay for the perpetrators.
He further added that the Indian Air Force is looking forward to inducting many more advanced fighters. Sooner the better.
Rafale definitely was a hero. Amongst other heroes, during Op Sindoor, Indian Air Force is looking forward to inducting a lot more MRFA aircraft, whether that is going to be Rafale or any other presently under deliberation.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi has paid tribute to Pandit Deen Dayal Upadhyay on his death anniversary, describing him as a guiding force for every generation of the nation. In a post on X, Prime Minister said, and I quote him here, "To the unparalleled devotee of the motherland, Pandit Deen Dayal Upadhyay ji, respectful homage on his sacred death anniversary. His principles and thoughts rooted in values will continue to remain a guiding light for every generation of the country." Unquote. And now let's take a look at other stories making news around the country in brief. Faith multiplies 1,000-fold at the revered Shiv temple in Jammu Lapelam village of Andhra Pradesh's Prakasam district. Devotees believe that a single chant here equals worshipping 1,000 Shivalingas in the sacred Panchamukeshwar form. With Mahashivratri nearing, large crowds are expected to gather for grand celebrations. The Indian Army held a major outreach program in Rampur, Kathua, aiming to strengthen trust and cooperation with local residents. Senior officials, local leaders and community members attended the event that featured cultural performances and shared celebrations. A free medical camp was also organized, underlining the Army's welfare push in the region. As artificial intelligence takes rapid leaps every day, presenting both unprecedented opportunities and serious challenges, governments across the world are racing to regulate it, aiming to make AI safer, fairer, and more beneficial for humanity. By early 2026, while Europe, United States, China, Latin America are following very different regulatory paths, United Nations is pushing for global coordination. And India, in the meantime, is arguing for democratization and inclusivity of AI. Here's a report by DD India correspondent Akhilesh Suman on how the world is trying to take the AI bull by the horns for practice and regulation according to local priorities.
The EU AI Act came into force on August 1, 2024. The law for AI regulation follows a risk-based approach, classifying AI systems as unacceptable, high, limited, or minimal risk. It bans AI applications that pose unacceptable risks such as social scoring and manipulative AI, and places strict compliance obligations on high-risk systems used in healthcare, law enforcement, and employment. Low-risk systems are subject mainly to transparency and disclosure norms. The United States still does not have a comprehensive AI law. President Donald Trump has replaced earlier policies with a new executive order focused on maintaining America's global dominance in artificial intelligence. As the world's largest AI innovator, including OpenAI, ChatGPT, and self-driving mechanisms like Tesla, the US continues to debate how much regulation is necessary without stifling innovation. China has opted for tight state control over artificial intelligence. It mandates algorithm registration, security reviews, and clear labeling of AI-generated content, particularly for systems that influence public opinion. While there is still no single comprehensive AI law, China's 2026 guidelines make watermarking of deepfakes mandatory. In December, China released a draft policy targeting AI services that offer human-like interaction, including companion chatbots such as Xingyi, developed by Chinese startup Minimax. The proposed rules aim to prevent psychological dependence on AI companions, mandating that companions must not pursue design goals of replacing social interaction. India released its AI governance guidelines in November 2025. Anchored in principles of trust, inclusion, and safety. At the G20 Leaders Summit in Johannesburg, Prime Minister Narendra Modi emphasized that artificial intelligence should be developed in a manner where human resources become assets, not liabilities. Brazil has passed a risk-based AI bill. The United Kingdom follows a principles-led, sector-specific regulatory model. And the G7 is promoting voluntary global norms through the Hiroshima AI process. With national regulations increasingly fragmented, the United Nations has stepped in. Its 2024 report titled Governing AI for Humanity calls for stronger global cooperation to manage AI risks. The UN recently also established an independent international scientific panel on artificial intelligence to provide assessment on the risks, opportunities, and societal impact of AI. As artificial intelligence continues to grow in power and influence, the real global test is not in just innovation, but also in effective coordination. How nations regulate AI today will have an overarching impact on the world's economic, political, and social order tomorrow. Akhilesh Suman's report for DD India.
And now it's time to get you all the latest action from the world of sports. To begin with cricket first. Let's take a look at the action-packed group stage matches set to take place today at the ongoing ICC Men's T20 Cricket World Cup. Well, injury hit Australia begin their World Cup campaign against Ireland. While Pat Cummins and Josh Hazlewood were already ruled out, Tim David is also set to miss the opening game as he continues to rehab his hamstring injury. Australia are also struggling for form, having been hammered by Pakistan by 3-0 just before the start of T20 showpiece. Ireland will also look to bounce back from their loss against Sri Lanka and keep their Super 8 hopes alive. England will take on West Indies in an evenly matched and crucial Group C clash of the World Cup in Mumbai. England survived a low-ranked Nepal, who came agonizingly close to upsetting them in their opening encounter. Both the teams have won the competition twice in the past and are chasing a third title victory like the defending champions India. So defending champions India will rather look forward to lock horns with Namibia in their Group A clash on Thursday at the Arun Jaitley Cricket Stadium in New Delhi. India defeated the USA by 29 runs in their opening encounter, while Namibia lost their opening against Netherlands. India will look forward to secure their second consecutive victory and build momentum before their all-important clash against Pakistan on Sunday. Meanwhile, it is a do-or-die clash for Namibia, as a loss here would virtually end their bid for the Super 8 stage. Ahead of the game, Ryan Ten Doesheth revealed that Washington Sundar, who was recovering at the BCCI Centre of Excellence after suffering a side strain, is back with Team India. But explosive opener Abhishek Sharma is still not fit and missed Tuesday training session as well. Abhishek Sharma was hospitalized with a stomach infection, leaving him doubtful for the match. Bumrah also missed the USA game due to a viral fever, but he has returned to training and is getting ready to play again. Colourful lanterns lit up Shanghai's historic Yuyuan Garden as the city geared up for the Lunar New Year. The festival's main highlight this year includes horse-shaped lanterns, marking the upcoming year of the horse. Floral designs and mythical creatures also fill the temple garden with vibrant displays. The Yuyuan Garden Lantern Festival will run for 3 more weeks, ending the 3rd of March. And with those beautiful visuals, it's a wrap here on DD India News Hour. But do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code to download it right now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Deepika, and from all of us here in New Delhi, thank you so much for watching DD India News Hour.